I told you it would be 10. Or what were the other times and dates? It would be now. This would be when the next live stream would be. So I've got a different blue cheese today. Slightly superstitious, I would say. I actually threw out that last blue cheese. Had nothing to do with it. I had a power outage due to roadworks and stuff which is going on along the highway here. Hopefully they've chilled out a little bit with the roadworks thanks to the coronavirus, but the roadworkers are actually seen as an essential service. Good morning. So today I've got the Roto Iti Blue. This is New Zealand made. Pam's finest for lovers of fine food. Traditional blue with robust savoury flavours. And this is produced in Mount Roskill, Auckland. So, batch number 1740. Let's give it a go. Pretty sharp smell. Cheers. Not too bad. Heavy on the sharp flavours, permeates the cheese quite a lot. It's standard blue cheese. Not as good as my usual. Not too bad. How's the house arrest going? Not too bad. It's pretty much business as usual here at Castledale AJ. So sorry about the early closure of the last stream. It was circumstances outside of my control. So I've started an hour earlier today because we've had 2 power outages. We call them power cuts in New Zealand. We've had 2 power cuts and they've both been around the same time, which is like an hour and a half from now. So hopefully we'll be okay. Today is the last clue. The last clue for the giveaway. So I'll go over once again what the giveaway is. This massive, genuine leather bag full of Dwarven Forge dungeon tiles, a set of custom leather bound D&D books, like so, although that's my set, a awesome dice tray that looks like dragon skin, a chainmail dice bag, a full set of metal mood dice, and a set of prismatic dice, I believe, including the giant mood D20s. Also a leather notebook with a note from me in it. And yeah, that's about it. How many clues are there? That's a good question. There are a total of 11 clues. With those 11 clues, and only with those 11 clues, is the only way you will discover how to win the prize. It's that simple. That's it. So the competition is now officially on. So the first person to figure out the clues is the first person to win. End of story. So it could have already been won. Somebody could have just been waiting for the last clue. Could have figured it out already. Yep, it's a Rebound Player's Handbook, Dungeon Master's Guide, and Monster Manual. Yeah, it's unbelievable swag. This is true. Basically, I said to myself, okay, what do I want as my dream swag bag of D&D stuff? I saw the opportunity in Chris was rebinding books, and I thought, oh man, can I get some custom leather bound D&D books that aren't going to fall apart? And sure enough, I could. And then I thought, ooh, what if I had like a leather backpack for them to go into? So I searched down Amazon and I found the best, well, one of the best bags I could find that was genuine leather, not this vegan leather as they call it. And I always wanted a chainmail dice bag, so I sourced one of those. I helped develop the metal mood dice, in a way, through a partnership with a Chinese company. And I just happened to be the recipient of my Kickstarter contribution to Dwarven Forge. And I really just wanted to test it out and see what the Dwarven Forge tiles were all about. And since I'm living at home now and working from home and far away from most people who play sit-down D&D, I thought I'd just throw the Dwarven Forge in there. They are cool. No, the power outage cannot keep me down. I've literally just woken up. I was up really late last night because today we're talking all about dragons. Dragons. My mind is full of dragon. So I've been working on the video for the Dragon Pantheon. I've been going over monster mythology, on hallowed ground, cult of the dragon, lots of stuff, lots of dungeon magazines, dragon magazines. Yeah, whew, there's a lot of information to cover. Well, Tuco, now is a perfect time to start campaigning again. Lockdown equals dragons, yeah, pretty much. So we're remastering the Dragon series. We've sort of paused the Giant series. The reason why I paused the Giant series is because there's some information which I have about the Frost Giants and to a lesser extent the Stone Giants, which I can't give to you officially yet because I'm bound by a non-disclosure agreement with the company that I helped develop the lore for. So while I do have information which is official, I can't release it yet until the product that information is included in is officially released, and then I can talk about it. So unfortunately, until that point, I've got to wait to release the videos on it. Which is, yeah, that's the nature of non-disclosure agreements for you. I was tempted to make a video about it and then put it on the streaming service so that patrons and members could see it privately. But that actually would still contravene the non-disclosure agreement, which would put me in contract violation with Wizards of the Coast and Took Games. So I will not do that. But yeah, that information is coming and it's exclusive and nobody else will know it until I pass it on to you, and you'll be the people who know it first. So that's kind of exciting. And it is really quite major news for the North and the Sword Coast. So that's pretty cool. Yep, I've really enjoyed doing the Devils and Demons series as well. And the Dragon series, of course, is highly popular, so I want to get it right. So I asked everybody what you wanted to see first, and the survey was pretty close, but it was essentially they wanted to see the origin of the dragons and the Dragon Pantheon first to start off the series. And then we'll talk, we'll basically go through successive dragon species individually, one by one, starting with, of course, the gold dragon, because the gold dragons are well, aside from the platinum dragons, which are all divine, the gold dragon is next on the rung, on the pecking list, really, of true dragons who are not stellar, who are not otherworldly. Yeah, it is privileged information for sure. Can I start over? Well, okay, let's have a bit more cheese. I've got to ration the cheese, man. Ration the cheese. Here we go. Dink. Dealing with the shard-mined avatar of a stellar dragon. Yeah, that's awesome. With the gemstones, that's yeah, cool. That's a great concept. Happy 14th anniversary, hello barista. Hello barista. Hello barista. You got the Vox and Machina graphic novel. How is it? Is it good? So, in the Dragon Pantheon video, one important thing that I talk about right at the start of the video is how to, as a scholar of Dungeons and Dragons, how to view mythology information. Now, I see a lot of people falling into the trap of saying, well, when Moradin did this, and when Corell and Larathian did this, and the elves were directed to do this, and they were created here, and they blah, blah, blah. The mythology of these creatures, these other races, is not reality. Quite often, it's not reality. So the dwarves probably were not created by Moradin in the depths of the world of Tyrol. They were probably transported there supernaturally by divine powers of Moradin, etc. But is Moradin real, or does he just exist as a figment of their imagination? You know, these questions. You know, there's got to be some wiggle room in there for it to just be a religion, just to be a mythology, and not everything be rote and real. Case in point is the Darrow. If you go and watch the Darrow video, you will see that the religion that the Darrow hold is not reality. They were actually created as a slave race on another world, a product of vile torture and mutation. And when they came to the world of Tyrol, transported, they came up with another mythology, which is basically they started believing something and the gods followed suit in that realm. So back where they came from, the gods are different because they believe differently over there. In the world of Faerun, the gods are that way because people believe them that way. So in every world, there is a slightly different pantheon, slightly different take on the religions and these different gods. The dragon gods, case in point, are incredibly ancient because the dragons are an incredibly ancient primeval species. Their lore of their mythology and their religion contradicts everybody else. And the dragons will not tolerate any religious dissent from anyone else. If you tell a dragon that what they believe is wrong, they will kill you for it. So it's a very interesting video because it paints a very different picture of the multiverse, one that a lot of people are going to fall into the trap of thinking must be true, because it correlates a lot with other things which have happened in D&D history. Case in point is the training and teaching of Vecna and Vecna's mother. Another video you should go and watch in preparation for this one. So, yeah. Dire Halfling, that's me. Well, dire halflings are a little bit like mule. Or mull, or mule. And Ferris dragons, yep, all of the dragons. What about second dragon? So do I think, sorry, I missed that one. Do I think, oh, by the way, super chats are currently active as well. Although, I do understand if nobody can contribute because you should be conserving your funds. Because of the economic pressure that we're all going to be facing. So if there's no live stream donations today, that's perfectly fine by me. Scorched. So do you think that the Empire of Dragons will rise again? Do you think that the Empire of Giants will beat them back from the top? So we're poised in a very interesting period in Faerun's history because two major species, which have not kicked off in a warfare for a very long time, are now poised to go at it again. and it's going to be an entirely different kettle of fish. Back in the prehistory, when the dragons and the giants had their war, it kind of kicked off from both sides. The dragons had invaded the world by essentially raining down from the sky. And when they arrived, they were proto-dragons, more like Lenorms in a way. They weren't differentiated up into the chromatic and the metallic dragons that we see today. They were slightly different. So dragons have evolved over time, and that's one key point for the dragons. It's only been, not even hundreds of thousands of years, and they've evolved so much in that time that you can see that they're actually, although they're a very long-lived species, they're a rapidly evolving species because of their ties with the environment, and more importantly, their ties with the fundamental nature of reality and magic itself. So one of the reasons why the dragon and giant war sort of petered out and didn't lead to a complete genocide of either species is because the giants were a relatively young species, and the dragons, most importantly, were involved in a civil war. It was a religious civil war that had its foundation in a differing opinion of the nature of Io himself, or Astragoth. So Astragoth was seen as the creator of all dragons and all reality, but the gold dragons and silver dragons could not accept that Astragoth could be both a lawful good deity and their creator, and also a chaotic evil creator and the god of the red dragons. So there was a fundamental alignment clash between the dragons, which was so severe that the dragons split into different parties, essentially different bloodlines. So they became the metallic and the chromatic dragons. It manifested physically in their segregation of their races. So while that was going on, of course, it led to some very devious and horrible behavior amongst the dragons that was to the advantage of the giants, and the dragons almost got wiped out. So they called for a truce. The mythology says that the dragon god and the giant god sat down and played a board game, and then decided to call it a truce there. But in actual fact, it was the worshippers of those gods that caused the truce in the first place. So everything went quiet. Everybody reclined into the background, and the civilized races, which had been freed from the suppression of these two massive, powerful races, rose up as their civilizations flourished. The elves first, and then they had a series of crown wars between them, which devastated their civilization and should be forever listed as a blot of shame on their record. Then came, of course, the dwarves rose up sort of alongside that later on, quite a lot later than people think. And then, of course, the rise of the humans. The humans had always been bubbling along in the background, but they rose up and now formed these majocracy empires of great power. So Imaskar and earlier ones as well, but Imaskar and Netheril were the ones that most people know of. So here we are poised now. And one of the other key elements was a human mage. The elves created a dragon rage mythal, which was a global enchantment over the world of Toril that periodically drove dragons insane. So it drove a lot of them to do their activities off-world. So off-world, in different planes of existence and another worlds, the dragons could go about their business and operate freely. On the world of Toril, they couldn't associate with each other because they were basically in lockdown, like we are now, because they couldn't cooperate with each other, because periodically they would go insane and kill each other and everything around them. Not a good way to be. Some dragons found this liberating. The chromatic dragons, for instance, didn't really mind it so much. But for the metallic dragons, it ruined all of their plans, and it basically devastated any chance they had of reforming their civilization after the Civil War. The giants went into decline, but are still active, and particularly the fire giants are very active over in other planes of existence, namely the elemental plane of fire. So, the elemental plane of fire and Muspelheim. Anyway, so then the Dragon Rage mythal ends relatively recently. Dragons have started to freely associate on the world of Toril again. Anam has returned after Tiamat had a disastrous return to the world of Toril, which the giants did really nothing to quell. It was left to the tiny races. Anam said, right, well, you guys have become too complacent in your social structure, and I'm destroying the ordning. So now you're not automatically better than another giant just because of your size and your race. You now have every chance to rise in your own individual merits. Everybody. So the giant races, which have long basically been sitting in subservience to aloof leaders of the storm giants and the cloud giants, are now rising up, namely the more martial gods such as the fire giants. And the fire giants and the frost giants have been itching to be let off the hook, let off the leash, and go after the world of mortals in the lowlands and stuff, and take over the world once more, as they should. Right smack bang into the newly released freedom of the dragons, who no longer have any religious civil war between them. So they are free to associate and come up with a civilization of their own once more. So we're poised in a very interesting period of Faerun's history, where the dragons and the giants are going to go at it again, and it's going to be potentially so much worse. So there you go. Astrogoth. Astrogoth. Or was it Azagoth? Hang on. Do-do-do. Do-do-do. I usually refer to him as Io. Io. And to everybody keeps asking me, you know, what's the difference between Io and Ao? Well, they're completely different. Those of you who played Greyhawk would refer to him as Io rather than Astrogoth. I should probably just open up the article that I've been writing. That would be easier and faster, AJ. Dirt. Asgarath. I was way off. Asgarath. A-S-G-O-R-A-T-H. So that is the name that the people of the world of Toril refer to, well, and also the dragons of Toril refer to Io as Asgarath. Asgarath. Anyway, all will be revealed in the video. Yeah, a new world war between dragons and giants coming up, about to kick off. So essentially, it's always best to sort of put your adventuring, your campaigns, in a world poised on the edge of some great conflict. You can feel that. Yeah. That's, I think, one of the reasons why Eberron appealed to me less, is because it's a world after a conflict. So it's a post-apocalyptic dystopian sort of situation. And I know that sort of gives it an exciting feel of we're in a lawless time. But I like the potential of a organised and almost complacent time which is about to fall into chaos. And the player characters are given knowledge about threats to the world that they are put in a position where they have to deal with it because they know about it and other people don't. So particularly if there's urgency to it, so they can't wait for officials to act. And in that sort of situation where the player characters learn about some great disaster which is about to befall the region, they go to the nobility, and the nobility says, you know what, I'm pretty comfortable the way things are. I don't believe. I choose not to believe you. In fact, I think you're a rebel. You're descending against my reign with this pointless babble. I mean, this is being played out as we speak in the world around us. We can see the sort of reaction from governments around us that it's an uncomfortable truth. It's like you can't avoid the thing which is the disaster which is about to befall us, and you see them change their tune as things become unavoidably obvious. But yeah, it's that interplay, it's that politics, it's that we're going to have to take things into our own hands and look after our own community, our own world. That's where the player characters become heroes. In a world like Forgotten Realms, for instance, where there already are heroes, how do they stand out amongst all the others? Simply because they're in a position where, we don't like being handed troubled times, but when troubled times come to you, you have to act. And even the worst of us have to sometimes be heroes. Thor the Godly. No. So, okay. Io is a multiversal dragon deity. So he's a deity of dragons. He's the overgod of the dragon pantheon. He's the father of all dragons. The father of all, according to the dragons, the father of all reality itself. So when a dragon refers to Asgrath, he may be referring to reality itself. All magic. All things, his ultimate parent. Going back to the very beginning, Asgrath would be the primarch, the primarch or the progenitor of their entire race, and all reality. So dragons believe, and I'm kind of stepping on the toes of my script here and giving you stuff which I'm going to be talking about. Dragons fundamentally believe that the entirety of reality is a dragon, and their horde is sacred, and they own everything, and they are the perfect manifestation of reality in dragon form, because dragons are everything. So the hubris and arrogance of dragons cannot be understated, and this is one reason why they don't react very well to anyone questioning their religion, because it questions their fundamental supremacy. It's a dire insult, saying that you're essentially telling a dragon, well, my gods are just as important as you, and you're no better than any other mortal creature. Dragons don't tolerate that, not for a second. Even the best of dragons will go, that's clearly not true. That's clearly not true. I'm clearly better than you. Even the best dragons will say that. So where does Ao fit into it? Ao is the overgod of the gods of Toril, and Toril alone. Ao is not a multiversal god insofar as he doesn't operate in other spheres of existence. So once you leave Toril and go to, say, Greyhawk or Kryn or Athos or anywhere else, Ao has no power and he has no presence there. They don't know of Ao. Ao is only a supreme god of Toril itself. Not only that, but he may actually just be restricted mainly to the continent of Faerun. So he's a god that controls the activities of other gods. He's kind of their Jehovah, you could say. He's down to the even tablets which dictate what the other gods do. They're called the Tablets of Fate. So Ao and Io are fundamentally completely different. Hey, thanks, Coyote Coyote Dog. That always gets me that name. Can't wait to get to the Dragons of Athos. He deserves his own episode to go over good history. Well, yeah, so the Athos dragons are entirely different once more. And they really, it's good to have a fundamental foundation in the dragon mythology, because it explains why dragons are magic, right? You hear this quite often about dragons, that dragons are fundamentally magical beings, and yet people look at them and they're like, well, it looks like a physical being to me with metabolism and stuff. They've got a stomach and intestines and all that. They look like they eat things and have a metabolism and stuff. How come dragons are so magical? Well, we'll find out. Yep, fundamentally, yes, even bronze dragons are dicks. It's true. They can be. For the most part, I mean, it manifests itself. You don't have to be evil to be a narcissist or, extremely arrogant. Dragons can have empathy. So that's sort of narcissism is usually characterized by lack of empathy. But dragons can be empathetic to lesser races, but they will still regard you as a lesser race. They don't see it as bigoted or evil. They just consider it to be the truth. And the fact is that they're predators of humanoids. Kind of, it's hard to argue with the fact that this thing is a massive it's like it's hard to argue that a tiger can kill you, because they absolutely can. You can hand a person a gun that can kill the tiger, but if the tiger gets a drop on you, every single time the tiger is going to be better than a human being. A human being cannot fend off a tiger. Tigers are fundamentally superior in their ability to kill a human. Humans can think of a way to deal with a tiger. Humans can think of a way to deal with a dragon, but dragons can also think of a way to countermeasure anything that a human can do. So the one advantage that humans have, which is their intelligence, is nullified by dragons, which quite often have superior intelligence to a human. So it's hard to argue with dragons in their arrogance. Some of them take it to a psychotic level, though, of course. Dog. Is that it? Dog. Dog. Coyote dog. Coyote dog? Dog? Coyote dog? Dog? Why can I can't get that right. So Ao only controls that continent on that sphere, that world on that sphere. He doesn't even control the other worlds. He mainly just controls, as far as we've seen, the world of Toril itself. And its flip side of Abia. So he's got the ability to manipulate that world. That's it. Ao could possibly control other worlds in that sphere. He is just as restricted as other gods in that he can't travel beyond that sphere. He exists in the minds of every living being within that sphere. Yeah, midweek stream, Jan Shevik, to make up for the fact that the last stream was so short. So Ao was not really... I don't think he was in the original plans of Ed Greenwood when he created Faerun and its deities. He didn't have that original concept of the Overgod. Essentially, Ao is the DM. Ao is the DM, so it's quite different from Io being an overgod deity and creator of reality. If the dragons win this upcoming war with the gods and with the giants and re-establish their empire, will the gods intervene if the dragons begin suppressing all the mortal religions? Here's the thing. The gods will still have... Like, the dragons may suppress the other people, but that just makes them pray harder. So it's actually in the best interest, in some ways, for the worshippers of the gods to have hardship. Isn't that a bit messed up? But there it goes. Gods thrive on worship. Desperate people worship harder. And they don't necessarily interfere with the free will. You could almost say that the time of troubles was a preparation from Ao, saying, look, you're too closely involved with these mortals. You need to let them play things out, because the mortals need to go through a refining process to become the heroes that we need them to be when they pass on to the afterlife and serve our best interests. And our best interests are we create a heavenly realm full of shit kickers who can deal with the fundamental breakdown of reality, which is the abyss. It's a big picture. It's a big picture. It's a long game being played by all of these deities. And the stellar dragons, for instance, are flying through the phlogiston and going to the different crystal spheres and talking with the different pantheons to take a bead on what's happening with the fundamental nature of reality. It's pretty mind-blowing. Yeah, the high gods were like, yeah, that was what was going on in the background. Because you would have these fundamental people who were saying, well, there's still God in this, isn't there? I mean, you've got the 9 hells and stuff, but there's still God in there, isn't there? And there's like, yeah, there's a God. You know, so they had to invent one. Look, in a fantasy world where heroism is thrust upon you, where it's set up to be a fundamental challenge. The fundamental nature of reality in Dungeons and Dragons is challenging for a simple mortal creature. The idea is that the opportunity for unlimited progress and adventure should exist in the game world, and it's built into Forgotten Realms and the overall multiverse of D&D. So you've got a world which has got plenty of wiggle room for dystopian realms like Athos to exist, for the dark, trapped, horrible dimensions of like Ravenloft and, you know, that sort of stuff. So there's that touch of, well, the cosmos is dark and it's full of terrors that was borrowed from, you know, H.P. Lovecraft and other horror authors. So there's room for light and frivolity and happiness and fun times, you know, dragon heists and things like that, and cities of magical contraptions and adventure and things, and not too dark, kind of flippant stuff. And there's also cosmic horror on a scale which is just mind-boggling. Which, yeah, and that's the beauty of Dungeons and Dragons. You can have both. Any story that you want to tell, you can fit it in there somehow. Well, the luminous beings, yeah, I mean, well, they don't like to talk about the Dungeon Master directly in the lore, obviously. I think in some ways, when they talk about the Far Realm being a realm of madness, the madness is when the characters realize that it's actually just a game, and they're just numbers on a character sheet. that quite often is used as like, you realize you're just numbers on a character sheet, and they're like, ah, nothing I do is real. Yeah. You can't argue with that, like, messing you up. It's like, oh, actually, you're not real. You're just a figment of some other creature's imagination. And they're not even a god. They're just another creature from a mortal realm, sitting around a table, rolling strange dice to determine your fate. What? That can't possibly be real. No, that's actually the reality. What? No. So the god's heaven is in the astral realm. So the astral realm is a realm of thought. That means when you become an astral being, you're traveling through the thoughts of other creatures, like you're traveling through the dreams of everyone. So you're not actually traveling to an outer plane of existence. You're traveling inwards to the astral plane. Inside, you know, well, it's a higher realm of existence because it's your thoughts are becoming one with everyone else. And you're in the zeitgeist of people and their beliefs, right? The shared beliefs form the strata of the astral realm. And so the higher you go in that, the higher you go up this chain of thought until you get to the celestial realms, right? Which is the most noble and inspiring and highest ideal. And then, of course, you know, the lower planes are the base desires and emotions and drives and stuff of people, which is their dirty, horrible thoughts, you know, and that's where the lower planes of existence and the nine hells and all that sort of stuff is. So it's, a lot of people don't like to think of it as a conceptual realm that's just thoughts, and its only influence on reality is a psychic manifestation of belief becoming real in reality around them. This is the basis of whatchamacallit, The Secret, you know, that sort of cult thing going on, that your will can actually, you know, change reality around you. Well, that's built into Dungeons and Dragons. That's the fundamental nature of magic and religion. So when you go into Check-in, we don't want to talk about that. No politics, thanks. So when you go into the astral realm, you're literally traveling into a realm of thought. The only way to get to the outer realms of the gods is through that astral medium. So it's a transitive plane, and you go into these color pools which lead you to other dimensions. You can travel there directly. So essentially, your body will manifest as a physical being in a psychic realm. So you become a thought form, and then to transition back, magic allows that medium to turn you back into a physical being again, back on the world that you came from. So it's quite possible for you to travel to an outer plane and your body to just go and fall over like you're traveling into the Matrix, because that's essentially exactly what you're doing. Traveling to the lower planes, the elemental planes, is a different kettle of fish entirely, because you're traveling into the fundamental nature of matter and energy itself. So they often refer to that as the inner planes and the astral realm as the outer planes. Dreamland, basically, yeah. That's why the Feywild is seen as a transitive plane in a way to the celestial realms, because the Feywild is story and fairy tales made manifest in this fantastical, vibrant realm of fairy tale and story, folk tales and stuff. So it's a transitive realm of story and imagination that leads to the higher realm of belief and fundamental thoughts about, good and evil and stuff. Yeah, God's corpses float around the astral sea because they're becoming forgotten. They're memories, right? The astral realm is a realm of thought, so dead gods are memories, vestiges of what was once important. So as long as their stories, their mythologies exist in manuscripts and carvings and things like that that may be discovered, those gods still have the potential, and they're floating around as vestiges that could potentially be rediscovered. So that's why, in order to kill a god, you have to find every instance of that god's existence and wipe it out. And only gods have got the capacity and the awareness to do that, because they have, the greater the god, the more awareness they have of the world around them, because they're in more thoughts of more people who are seeing stuff around them all the time. So when somebody mentions Ao is looking through their eyes in that spot, covering a 10-mile radius. They have this incredible awareness. No, so I'm stepping back a little bit from Pearson